Hi everyone, it's Andrea over at Sewspire.com, and today I am here to show you how to design and assemble a custom planner cover. So this particular cover, which we're going to cut and sew together, is designed to fit the 7.5 by 9 inch spiral bound planners such as the Erin Condren Daily or the Plum Planner. But as part of this tutorial, I'm going to give you the formula so you can calculate the measurements to design a planner cover that will fit your planner or your notebook, okay? So just as a reminder, with each tutorial, I put together what I call a design board, and those are PDF documents that include very concise written instructions as well as the pattern measurements. And so you'll have everything all in one document, and you can purchase those for a nominal fee. I'll put the link down below to my pattern shop. While you're there, be sure to check out the other design boards and step-by-step PDF tutorials. You might find another project that you'd like to make. And so let me show you what this gorgeous planner cover looks like. It is crafted from a beautiful Dear Stella floral. And then on the inside, I used a pretty PB Textiles accent there. The colors are just so gorgeous. And so inside I have a large flap envelope style pocket here that's perfect for holding stickers and other correspondence. And then I have two larger pockets that are great for the cell phone, business cards, cash, little post-it notes, a center pen pocket, and then the swivel key fob there for my keys. And then along this opposite side is a nice sturdy pocket, and that's where you slip the back cover of the planner there. And then you also have the ability to tuck other documents and things under there for safekeeping. And a lot of people ask me what my favorite pen is for planning. I really dig the Sharpie pens because they write so nice with a felt tip, but they don't bleed through the pages. And I just want to show you how great this pocket is. It's really nice and deep. You can fit those full-size sticker packs inside of there. I opted to go with the snap closures because they don't make as much noise as the hook and loop tape does. And so like if I'm in a meeting or on a Zoom or something and I want to open this up, it doesn't make that crackle noise. But for a long time I did use the hook and loop tape for these planner covers. So it's really just a matter of preference. But overall, it's a really fun and functional project, and the new planners are coming out. So this is what I call planner season. So I hope those of you that enjoy planning are excited for this project. If you will, please leave me a comment below with some project ideas for the summer of 2021. I'd love to know what you want to sew with me, and I will do my best to get those on the schedule for you. So please take a few minutes and think about what you'd like to make, and I'll see what I can do. Okay, so without further ado, shall we get started? Okay, so the very first thing you're gonna need to do is get the measurements of your planner when it is open and laying flat on the cutting mat there. So you want to round up, because if it's too big, there's things you can do to accommodate for that, like adding a row of top stitching. But if it's too small, there's just nothing you can do about that. So round it up. Mine measures approximately 16 inches when open, and then approximately 9 inches tall. All right, so now what I'm gonna do is add a minimum of 2 inches to the width. So my very minimum cut would be 18 inches. Now, usually when things go wrong, it's because I have cut that width too small. So for good measure, I am going to add in an extra inch, which again, I'll show you how to absorb if needed in the end. So I'm going to go ahead and cut my width 19 inches, and then for the height of this, the minimum you want to add is 1 inch. So my height will be 10 inches. But I know that I want to work in those little pen slips across the top. So I'm going to add 2 inches to the top and then 3 inches to the side. So my cuts are going to be 19 by 11 inches for the body panels of this planner. And so I know that I want the exterior of this to be crafted from this stunning floral, which is by Dear Stella, and it's part of the August Wren collection. And so what I'm going to do is make that first cut 11 inches because that's the height of this project. So you remember from the camera bag tutorial, I like to true up that right hand edge and just make sure I'm working with a nice even cut of fabric, and then I'll come over and mark that 11-inch cut. And so this here will become the exterior and the interior body panels for this project. And so now I want to get those so that they measure 19 inches across. And so I will just true up that right hand side and then bump over to 19 here. And here's the selvage there. So you can get some of this if you like. And so now I have my front and rear exterior and interior panels for this project, which again are 11 by 19 inches. And so the next thing I want to do is cut an identical panel to that, and that is going to become the flaps for the planner cover and that large interior pocket. So I think I'll work with this gorgeous accent print for that. And this particular one is paper mache by P&B Textiles. And this one's really wonky. They use the tear technique at the quilt shop, and it's actually is a little short on one side, so yeah. So anyways, I'm gonna true up this part here, and I'll save this little chunk here for another project. And I need that 11-inch cut. And then I'm gonna go ahead and trim that up to 19. And I will save this little edge here because it's the perfect size for the key fob there. And then these cuts here will get folded to create the pocket on the left hand side and the slip on the right hand side. So all you have to do for these two pieces is just fold them in half like that. When we get over to the iron, I'll show you how to press those. And so now I have my slip for the planner and my large pocket. And then you'll remember on the front of that pocket, I have two slips, and these are great for pens, business cards, loose items like that. In addition, I need to get the flaps cut out and the closure cut out. So I think I may for that flap, I think I would like that in the floral. And so I usually cut my flaps 8 inches wide, and so I'm just going to make an 8-inch cut there. And then for that side flap, it will be 8 inches wide, 8 inches tall, depends how you're looking at it, by 8. Okay, so this one 8 by 8 inch cut will create the flap on the side there to close the planner, and the flap that's going to come down over that large envelope pocket. So I have 2 of those. And now I need the pockets that are going to go on the front of that large envelope. And so those I think I will make from this gorgeous accent print. And I think I would like those to be approximately 7 inches tall. So I'm just going to cut off a 7-inch strip there. And then I'm going to go ahead and bring back over this folded pocket panel here, because I'm going to want that to be the same width as that. And so that is approximately 9.5 inches wide. So I want to get a pocket panel that is the exact same width and height, and that was folded in half. So if you're cutting yours will be 19 by 7, and then this, of course, you know, is 19 by 11. So hopefully you can see how this is going to come together. I'll layer everything out for you so you can have a better visual. So we have the interior and the exterior. We have the larger envelope pocket with the pockets on the front of that. We have the swivel fob here, which if you're curious about that, it is 3 inches by 11 inches, and you can size that to fit your hardware. And then we have the slip here, which the planner is going to slide into. And then we have the flap closure on the side here, and the flap closure for my envelope pocket there, and then that all comes over like that, and that shows you kind of what it will look like. It'll be absolutely gorgeous, and I'll have plenty of room for my seam allowance. So I'm going to cut out a piece of fusible fleece that's the same size as my exterior body panel, and then 4 by 8 for this flap and 4 by 8 for the flap for the inside. And then I'll meet you at the iron and we will press these and get started sewing. Okay, so I realized I did not have enough of the fusible fleece to give this the stability that I wanted. So what I'm going to do is combine like a very light iron-on interfacing. I think it's SF101, but any light Pellon product, 808 or 809 would work as well, but you can see right through that. So I'm going to combine that with some warm and natural quilt batting, and that should be just fine. So this is my interior body panel, and I'm just going to adhere that lightweight Pellon interfacing to that. And this is that interior envelope pocket, and it measures the same as the interior body panel, and I'm going to go ahead and use the lightweight interfacing on that as well. And so after you get that interfacing attached to that pocket, then go ahead and fold that top edge over an inch and press that. And then fold that back in half and press again. And that's going to create that envelope pocket that's going to be on the left-hand side. So I'm going to set that aside there, and then this is the pocket that's going to go on the front of that envelope pocket, and I'm going to put some of that lightweight interfacing on that as well. And I'll use the same technique, just fold over that top edge a little less, this time about 3/4 of an inch. And then fold that in half. And press again. And then that's going to get positioned on top of that pocket that's on the left. And then the second accent panel, which is also the same measurements as those body panels, will also have that lightweight interfacing on it. And this is what the back of the planner cover or the notebook is going to slip inside. So we don't have to fold over that top edge, but we do need to fold it in half and press well. And then we need to bring back that folded edge about 1.5 inches, and we're just going to create a 4-ply lip there, and that is going to offer some stability along that edge where the planner is going to go in, like it reinforcing the spine, if you think of it like that. And it also shortens the pocket so that it fits better inside of there, and you can still close up the organizer. So you can see how that's going to look, and then it will fold over like that. And I just want to make sure that my side pocket is not too big, so I'm going to press a center line in this here and then reposition everything. You want everything out of that center, and I am right on that center, so that should be just fine. This piece here is my exterior body panel, and it is backed with Warm and Natural quilt batting, and so I just want to press that. It's not fusible, but I do like to press it, and then I find that what that does is it kind of helps the fabric attach to the batting just naturally, and it takes out any wrinkles that might have been in the batting. So that's all I have to do with that. Then I have one of my flap closures, and so I want to press that in half, and that is also going to be backed with a piece of full-size piece of that lightweight interfacing, and so I'm going to attach that. And then I am going to have to press that in half again, but I'm not going to iron on the back of that because sometimes this will stick to the iron, so that's why I pre-pressed in that line, because then while it's still hot you could just press with your hand. And then on the back of that is going to get a 4" by 8" cut of quilt batting, and that'll just give that flap some more durability. And I'm going to repeat that same process for the other 8x8 flap. So first I'll pre-press in half, and then I'll attach the lightweight pellon. Press, and then I'll lay my batting right on top of there. And then I have my key fob, which I'm going to go ahead and attach the pellon to as well. And then I fold that in half and press long ways. And then bring those outer edges inward to meet on that center press line. Same on the opposite side. And then I fold that over one more time to create the strap. This pellon holds the heat. It is hot. And so that's what the key fob strap will look like after it's all pressed up. And so now I am ready to start sewing. So I'm going to meet you at the sewing machine. Okay, so we're ready to start sewing. For this, I'm going to use a 3.0 stitch length, a 90-14 needle, and I'm going to begin by stitching down that open folded edge of the key fob first. And then I'm going to come across that short edge and back down the finished edge. And that completes the key fob, and it does have a lot of body with that lightweight pellon inside of there. And so I'm just going to slip on my 1-inch fob and go ahead and align those raw edges and just run a row of stitching across there. And I can set the fob aside for a few minutes. And now I want to craft the flaps. And so you remember those are folded in half. There's the lightweight pellon and some quilt batting on the back of that. And so I'm going to stitch down using a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance down the short side, across that folded edge, and down the opposite short side. And I'm going to repeat that for the second flap. And then for these, you definitely want to trim away the excess there. And I usually cut those corners at an angle there. Just be careful not to trim through your stitching. And then you're going to turn them right side out, poke out those corners and press them really well. And then for the one that is going to be positioned on top up and act as the closure to that envelope pocket, you're going to fold in those raw edges about 1/2 inch and press that to give a finished edge there. And then for the one that is going to act as the closure for the whole piece, you can just leave those raw edges as they are, because they're going to be concealed within that side seam. So with this piece that has the raw edges, go ahead and top stitch around the finished edges. And that's what that looks like. And then for this piece that has those edges turned inward, just stitch down the short sides and across the bottom there. Leave this part open. And that's what that looks like. And again, that top part is open. And then the next step is to top stitch down that flap that we pressed over for the part where the back of the planner cover is going to slip in. And so first I add a row of stitching close to the edge there, and then I'm going to come in and add a second row all the way at the opposite edge. And that's what that looks like. And then we have to work on this front pocket here. So we want to tuck the key fob into that front pocket, and you can put it towards the left or towards that fold. I usually put it towards the fold because then that will put the keys closer to the inside. And what I'm gonna do for this, because I don't want that fob slipping up and down on that, I'm gonna top stitch real quick and lock that fob into the end of that. Okay, and then I'll tuck those raw edges in towards that fold on that front pocket, and you can tuck it down as far as you like. I prefer a shorter fob, and since this one is so stiff with all of that interfacing, the keys will end up hanging like that, which is fine. And so actually I think I'm just going to go ahead and tuck it all the way down in there. Now that obviously was a waste of that material, but I didn't realize that it would be quite that stiff with all of that pellon. But then what that does is add some stability to that particular pocket anyway, so that's totally fine. So now I want to add 2 rows of top stitching across the top of that pocket. And with that double layer of that SF 101, this pocket has a lot of body to it as well, so that's nice. Okay, and then this pocket is going to get positioned on the front of the envelope pocket, and you'll just align those folded edges and raw edges. And I will hold this up for you so you can see that. That's what it will look like. And so what I need to do first is top stitch across the top of the envelope pocket. I'm going to add 2 rows of stitching, and then I need to divide this lower pocket. You have a lot of freedom, and you can divide that to hold pens individually. You could divide it to hold business cards, a small notebook. So really take advantage of the ability to customize this and measure your contents and then divide to suit your needs. And I like to work with these Sharpie pens, so I'm just going to go ahead and position one right in the center of that pocket and stitch on each side of it. So I have that there, that's where I would want to stitch. And when you're doing the pocket divisions, it is very helpful to back stitch a couple times at the top of that pocket, because that's definitely a stress point. And so I'll have a larger pocket that would hold business cards or a small notebook, and the same on the opposite side, and then the center pen pocket. And so now this right hand edge is completely finished, but I have not attached the 2 pockets yet on that side. So what I want to do is work with my interior panel, which is backed with the lighter interfacing. And off on that left hand side, I am going to position this double pocket panel there. And I want to line everything up so the raw edges are nice and flush at the bottom and the sides are flush. And then I'm going to stitch right down that center to attach the two pockets to this body panel. And I'm just going to start right at the top of that taller pocket. Add some back stitching. And then as I approach the shorter pocket, I'm going to have to give that a little tug so it aligns nice. And then I'm going to back stitch again because that's also a stressor point. So here's what I have so far. And then now it's time to attach the flap to this pocket. So this is why we left that edge open, because we're going to stitch across the top of that, and that will seal the flap and attach the flap to this interior panel. And so what I like to do is tuck this flap down underneath that pocket. So I just fold that over, and then I'm going to need to pin this to hold it up for you. So it's coming down below the top edge of that pocket, and I just stitch right across there to attach that. And I'm just lining up that left-hand edge of the foot with the bottom edge of that flap. See what that looks like afterwards. And so that flap will just come down over that pocket and then act as a closure for that pocket. And at the end of this, I'm going to install 2 snaps, one in each corner, so the contents of that pocket will be nice and secure. Until then, I'm going to put a pin in that to hold that down, so I can keep it out of my seam allowance there. And so then the next thing I need to do is position my flap on that right hand side, and this is what the planner is going to slip inside. So I know that that planner is about 7 inches deep, so 2, 4, 6, 7. This pocket still may end up being a little too deep for this, so I'm going to bump it off the edge about an inch so that the pocket itself is actually 7.5 inches deep. And this would be a great time if you have your planner to slip that back cover in there and make sure that the pocket is not too deep, because what will happen is that I'll push the coils too far out into the center, and then your planner cover won't close. And so you can see I just have a little bit of overhang there, and that will get trimmed off in the end. And so I didn't know exactly how much I would consume with this fold here, but just keep that in mind and go ahead and fit your contents and make sure that you have the proper depth on your pocket. If you have a larger planner that's wider, it's going to consume that, and so you won't have to adjust at all. Okay, so then the next step is to position the flap at center along that right hand edge. So don't forget you have that overhang if you bumped anything over, and so that flap is going to need to come into a line with the edge of the body panel. And for now I'm just going to put a pin in all of that, and you do want it centered on there, so you may need to measure. It's going to end up being about 1.5 to 1 3/4 inches from the top and the bottom. And so that's what that looks like. But remember, I have that overhang on the back. If you trim yours up, it will all sit nice and flush. And for the sake of anyone who might be joining in the middle of this, I am going to go ahead and trim it so there's no confusion. Okay, so here's what it'll look like. The flap will be aligned nice and flush with that side. You have your 2 pockets here. This flap is already attached and the key fob is in place. And then the next step is to position that exterior panel right on top of this, and then go ahead and align all of the edges. And the clips are really great for this because there's a lot of fabric and a lot of interfacing here. And so that's what it looks like on the front, and that's what it looks like on the back. And so now you're going to stitch using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance across the top, down the side that has the pocket with the flap, and across the base. You're going to leave the side that has that flap closure unstitched. And the 5/8 of an inch seam allowance is very handy with this because there's so many layers. It's really easy to get too close to one of the seams, and then that gets to be very frustrating after you turn everything around. So go with the 5/8 if at all possible. And then once you make it around the top, the bottom, and that side with the envelope flap pocket, then go ahead and verify that you have captured all your layers, and then trim everything up to 1/4 inch. And then if you do have any pins inside of there, be very careful. I still have the pin in there for the 2 flaps, so I can take one of those out for the flap that's in a little bit further, but the one that's going to act as the closure, I'm going to try and leave that in and not poke myself. And so you want to carefully turn everything around. And then poke out those corners well and give this a really good press. Alright, so I've given it a really good press. These colors are so vibrant and so gorgeous. And now I just want to verify that the flap that's going to close up the planner cover is only attached to that pocket. And what I'm going to do is turn that so that it's actually a wrong side out there. So the inside of the pocket is now on the front of the planner cover, and that flap is sandwiched in between. And so you're definitely going to want to make sure that the flap is nice and straight and even with that edge, and give everything a good press. And I do think I'm going to have to scooch that flap out just a bit so that I can capture all those layers. And so just make sure, really take your time and make sure all of those layers are nice and flat and even so that you can capture them all in that seam allowance. And there is a lot going on. There is some risk here that the corners are going to bunch up. So again, just stick your fingers in there and pull everything really taut and try and get all that fabric to lay nice and flat. And then put that up there on the machine deck, same 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, and stitch through all those layers. And then just verify that you have the pocket, the flap, and the body panels captured in there. And then you can trim away that excess down to 1/4 inch. And then you're going to reach inside and turn that pocket back around to hide that final seam. And then I like to use the turning stick there to poke out those corners really good. And then I'm going to give it a really nice press. Okay, so here's what it looks like on the back there. And here's the interior. So this is technically is the front, but here's the interior of that. And so now I want to test fit my planner in there, and I just want to stick that cover inside of the flap there. Oh, and it is such a good fit. And then I'm going to go ahead. It's literally a perfect fit. Absolutely perfect. Okay, and so the reason you want to test fit here is you want to get an idea of about where you need to position those snaps. So there's going to be a snap in each corner of this flap, but you need to know how far in you're going to come onto the front of that planner cover. So I'm just going to mark with these little tulip pins there about where my snaps should come in. And it's looking to me with this particular planner that I'm going to be safe coming in 1 1/4 inches from that edge. So that's awesome. And I'll make a note of that. And then I'll need to install the snaps for this envelope pocket as well, which if you had bulky contents, you could go ahead and put them in there and see if you need to give yourself a little room. But for me, I just want that flap to lay nice and flat. So I'm gonna remove the planner now that I know where to position those snaps. And I like to work with these heavy duty Dritz snaps. I have so much interfacing and batting in this that I don't have to worry about these snaps pushing through. What you will want to consider is that you select a snap that has a really nice long prong, because there is a lot going on here, and so you want to make sure that you can get your snap all the way through these materials. You could also use a press lock, hook and loop tape if you wanted. You will have to make some modifications for those items and install perhaps during the construction process. So I'm just getting all of these snap pieces together so that I can hammer at one time. And I just use a little tiny hammer to install my snaps. So I'm going to begin with this top flap here because that's nice and simple. And so I want the decorative part to be on the flap, and so I'm just going to put that close in the corner but not overlapping that stitching. And the turning stick is really great for poking those prongs up through all of that fabric and interfacing. And then the female portion of that snap sits right on top of there, and I just give it a few whacks. And then the male portion of that goes right inside there. And I'm going to go ahead and install the second snap on the opposite side. And that's what that looks like. And then once I have them installed on the flap, then I can fold that flap over, and using the remaining prongs, I can poke in the front of that pocket so I know then where to come from the underside to get that snap in the right spot. And so for those, I just work one side at a time so I can make sure that I don't make the flap crooked by misinstalling one of those base prongs. And that's what that flap looks like with the snaps attached to that. It's super cute. It fits just perfectly, and it's going to give me a really nice deep pocket to put documents, letters, things like that. If you have a small e-reader, it'll fit in there as well. Okay, then the next step is attaching those snaps on the exterior, which gets a little bit more tricky. So the first thing I want to do is install them on the flap. So that's nice and simple, just same thing, you perk one in each corner of that flap with the decorative head on the exterior. And that's what that looks like. And then I'm going to fold that closed, and coming 1 1/4 inches in on the top there, I'm going to position little poke holes lining up where my snaps are on this, and that 1 1/2 inch mark. And again, I'm just going to work one snap at a time so I don't accidentally make that flap crooked while I'm installing these in. So I just want to get those poke holes in the fabric so that I know where to poke those prongs up. And so you're going to unsnap the flap on that pocket and reach inside of there and put those prongs through that exterior body panel and that interior lining as close as you can get to where you put the poke holes in the fabric. You can also mark that with a fabric marker if you like, but the only thing about that is if for some reason you mismark, then you kind of have ruined your project, whereas if you just use the poke holes, you can always steam press those out. Okay, so I have the prongs poked up. I just want to ensure that my corners are aligned, and then visually that snap is in alignment. Then I'm going to fold that flap over, and you really want to make sure that those prongs are resting and they're nice before you hammer. And then once you feel like you have that set, go ahead and turn it over and hammer from the underside, and you just peel back the layers so you can get as close as possible to that hardware. And then double check that it's secure. And then you're going to install the snap on the lower portion of that. And so first double check that your corners are aligned, and then double check that your flap is straight, and then go ahead and poke those holes in the top of the fabric so you know about where you should bring those prongs up through. So you're going to have to unsnap that first one, and you're going to come in through that pocket and then poke those prongs right up through. Okay, and again, take the time to align those corners, and then snap the flap on the snap that's already installed, and then position the one that's in progress. Verify everything's nice and straight, and then finish attaching. And for this one, you can turn it over and then just peel back that corner, and that'll allow you to hammer on the back side of that snap. And it's done. Oh, it turned out so perfect. That formula that I gave you for measuring is spot on, and it will result in a nice, snug, perfect fit for whatever size planner you have. Just remember to add 2 inches to the height and a minimum of 3 inches to the width there. And of course, obviously measure that flat and open on your surface, and then you will end up with a really awesome planner cover organizer. So this particular design has the double flap closure and then the slip for the back of the planner there. It's got 2 pockets for larger items like business cards, cash, or a small notebook, and then a center pocket for my favorite style of pen there, then a snap and flap pocket for larger items. That pocket tends to house my stickers that I'm using. So the measurements on the actual cover when it's finished are about 18 inches crossed when it's open, about 9.5 inches tall, and about 8.5 inches across there. And again, this is designed to fit those planners that are approximately 7.5 by 9 inches, such as the Erin Condren Daily or the Plum planners. But again, I gave you the formula if you would like to custom measure to fit your specific planner. And then don't forget, I also offer a design board that has the measurements for this exact project, as well as a formula box for you if you would like to custom measure and make notes to create your own. So I'll put the link for that down in the notes for you. And while you're in my pattern shop, check out some of the other design boards and step-by-step PDF tutorials. You might find another project that you're also interested in making. Of course, I want to invite you to subscribe to the channel as well. And if you did enjoy this tutorial, please give the video a thumbs up. It means a lot to me. I would love it as well if you'll comment down below with what you'd like to see in future tutorials. I'm setting up the summer schedule now. So if there's a project you've always wanted to make with me, now would be a great time to let me know. Just comment and I will see what I can do. So as always, I thank you for joining me today, and the creative genius in me will be celebrating the creative genius in you. Have a beautiful week, everyone.